Three-team trade going down. Chicago Bulls, Detroit Pistons, and the Minnesota Timberwolves in a three-team deal. So the Bulls, they'll get Jayden Ivey, obviously from Detroit, Mike Conley from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then the Pistons get Kevin Huerter, Dario Saric, and a pick swap for Minnesota. So Minnesota, they're trying to open up the books a little bit more, where they're in the hunt, obviously, to make a deal for Giannis Antetokounmpo, where obviously they're on his list of one of the preferred teams he wants to go to, or even make a deal for James Harden, even though it's looking like Harden, he might go elsewhere, possibly to Cleveland. So this deal, Chicago, they load up at guard. We know they traded for Anthony Simons, and I think right now Kobe White will be the odd man out. Jayden Ivey, obviously the main piece, a guy they were very high on, was this Detroit Piston team since drafting him a few seasons ago, even though he hasn't lived up to the bill, dealing with injuries and just an inconsistent play. So this season, very down year for him, where last year, I know he didn't play much, but last season, 17.6 points a game. This season, only 8.2 points a game, 2.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.3 threes, and 45% from the field. But now going to Chicago, where he's going to get more opportunity. Obviously in Detroit, it was Cade Cunningham's backcourt over there for this Detroit Piston team, and rightfully so, where Ivy last season, he was banged up majority of the season, and he was the odd man out. And if they trade Kobe White, that's going to open up even more minutes. And also as well, Anthony Simons, they've made a deal with for Nikola Vukovic. So in terms of fantasy basketball, landing spot actually bumps up the value of Jayden Ivey, where right now he's out there in 86% of fantasy leagues. He's going to get more shot opportunities. Like I said, he was the big piece in this trade for the Chicago Bulls team to bring him in. And I think his value goes up. And now to Mike Conley, they buy him out and he goes to more of a contender as he gets bought out, where we've seen a lot of these veteran type of players. So Mike Conley, he's at the tail end of his career. Obviously, this was to get his contract off the books for this Timberwolf team, where they're trying to make bigger moves. And that's why they just got the pick swap and cleaned cap room and tax money getting Conley off the books. So Conley, regardless where he goes, he's not going to have fantasy value. Like I said, at the back end of his career, which has been a great NBA career, 4.4 points a game, 1.8 rebounds, 2.9 assists at 3, and 32% from the field. So his numbers way down from last season. So he's not going to be a fantasy factor, more of a locker room guy and a guy to teach younger players, regardless if he stays with the Bulls or not. And out to the Pistons, Dario Saric, second time he was traded. This week is Saric. At this point, he's just obviously a contract to even out money in trades. And it wouldn't be surprising if the Pistons make another move and Saric is a salary dump to line up contracts is in that. So he's not going to have fantasy value regardless where he goes. And Kevin Huerter, now going to this Piston team, you assume he's going to take the spot of Jayden Ivey's minutes. And Huerter, we know he's a good three-ball shooter, but we know they got guys like Duncan Robinson, very similar, even better than Kevin Huerter, pretty close, in my opinion, between those two shooters. Also, Caris LeVert over there in Detroit. And Huerter on the season, 10.9 points a game, 3.8 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 1.6 threes, and 45% from the field. So in terms of fantasy basketball, he's not going to have much value. He's only owned in 10% of fantasy leagues as Kevin Huerter. But like I said, he's another sharpshooter to come off this bench for this Detroit Piston team, where obviously a lot of teams double team Cade Cunningham, and a guy will be open, Huerter could knock down that three ball, and that's why they brought him in. But in terms of having fantasy value and a huge impact, he's pretty much just a player that's going to play, I think, with this Piston team 20-25 minutes per game. So the Chicago Bulls, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Pistons make a three-team deal, with the headliner in the deal, Jayden Ivey, going to the Chicago Bulls, and the Timberwolves cleaning some cap and taxes off, trying to make a bigger deal with the deadline in the next few days. And we'll see what these players can do with their new teams for the remainder of the 2026 season.